My name is Kelechi Inyukuri. I'm a senior software engineer, and with me I have Israel.
Hi everyone, I'm Israel, and it's great to be with you here today. Today we are going to be talking about WatchDog, a new open source logging tool for .NET. Um, all right, Kelechi, let's get started with what WatchDog is.
All right. So WatchDog is actually an open source tool. Um, it's leverages on various technologies, right? And then it helps .NET developers introduce message login, events login, HTTP requests, and HTTP response in the applications, right? So if you have any need to monitor your log messages, your HTTP requests, your HTTP responses, and even custom events and custom messages, then I think Watchdog is your go-to tool. Watchdog achieves all this in a real time manner. So you don't have to keep refreshing your browser. You don't need to wait for a particular message to hit the DB before you can view these messages, right? And it provides you a dashboard, a monitoring dashboard that is user friendly. Um, the user experience is cool, and then it's very quick to um, get yourself around, right? So in the recent pre-release of Watchdog, which is on version 1.3.3 RC, we've made minor improvements to the overall performance of Watchdog, and also we've introduced a log level feature, right? So if you need kind of various levels of message logging, I think log warning, error, and then the normal information, then you can actually leverage on that. So I think we're going to go forward to explaining what or how it actually works, and then I think Israel is going to take that.
Okay, great. Um, so WatchDog, how does it work? How do you get all these amazing features inside your .NET application? So this is a basic architectural diagram of how Watchdog works. So Watchdog is a middleware. It sits inside. So if you are still using .NET 3.1 or below .NET 5, you should have it in your startup class. If you are using .NET 5 and above, you should have it in your program class. It's a middleware, and that means it has access to basically everything about your application. So the requests that come into your application, the happenings inside your application, and then the responses that your application emits or gives out. So basically what Watchdog does, it sits in the middle of your application, and then it's able to capture these requests that get into your application. It's able to capture the messages or events and exceptions that happen inside your application, and it's able to capture the responses that your application gives out. What it does with this information is it structures it, and then it saves it into your database, the database of your choice, of your choosing, or a default database that is packaged into Watchdog. And at the same time, it also emits a notification to the dashboard of Watchdog, which also is packaged in the application or in your package. Not It emits that notification, and then the whole thing happens in real time. That's why Signal R is there, and then your developer, your monitoring officer, or your system administrator can see the happenings of your application in real time, and see whatever is going on in your application as they happen. So we are going to move on to more details of Watchdog. We are going to explain how all these parts work, and what tools or what technologies are handling what and where they are. So let's move further. Kelechi.
All right. So adding to what Israel has already said, I think you already know that Watchdog is flexible for the various what I say technical levels in you wherever you are going to be um leveraging on Watchdog, system admins, monitoring officers, developers. So once this is configured on your .NET applications, right, you could actually extend the usage to even those that don't have a lot of technical knowledge about the whole application. So that's more that's the main focus of the visual dashboard that we've already given or made ready available for you at Watchdog. So next is talking about what are the most important considerations while we during the whole build of Watchdog, right? So we had to take into considerations because right, Watchdogs, like Israel has already said, acts like a middleware that sits between your requests, your responses. So we have to, while building this, we have to put into considerations um, a couple of measures that will make sure that your application is um, performing better at utmost performance regardless. So I think Israel is going to talk about speed and we're taking size.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Kelechi. So these are the most important considerations while we were building Watchdog and while we are coming up with the idea. And that is not to say there were no other considerations. That just means that these are the most important. And speed is actually very important when building applications with .NET, either APIs or MVC applications. And Watchdog sits in between your application. It means that it performs some specific task, and those tasks take time. That is why speed is optimal. Also, with every decision we make, every line of code we write, we consider how that is going to add to the performance, or how that is going to add to the response time or execution time of your API tasks. So speed was actually, coming up in every discussion everywhere to make sure that while Watchdog is performing its task, it doesn't add, a delay to what is happening in your APIs or what is happening in your processes. Because when you are calling an API, say for example the API to login, right? You need to maybe call your database to fetch that user details and all of that. So we want to make sure that while that is taking 2 milliseconds and Watchdog has to perform its own task as well, it's not adding an extra millisecond to that time. It's probably adding 0.03 or as little as possible. So with every decision we make, we consider speed. And I'm going to let Kelechi talk about size and why size is also important in Watchdog.
Yeah. So Watchdog currently has a size to be approximately um
I think,
600 kilobyte
yeah, that's
thereabouts.
correct.
And then while building Watchdog, a lot of the considerations were put in place to make sure that we don't have a very large package so that your overall .NET application doesn't just the size doesn't just boom out. So we kind of took into considerations leveraging on the .NET specific libraries. We made sure that we didn't really leverage on external libraries. We wrote really low leveled code, reduced lines of code, and made sure that we leverage very minimal external libraries. So we're saying we didn't entirely disregard the external um, libraries, but we make sure that we consumed as minimal as possible. So size of your packages will actually affect your .NET application size, the overall size in production and on the long run. So we try as possible to make sure that our package doesn't significantly add to that overall size. So imagine an application doing multiple services, right? Um, I don't want to make mention of packages that we are actually doing what they're doing and more, and then we have considerable lower um, package size than theirs. So, like I said, we had to take into consideration the size of the application or the package you're building and then making sure that while you are installing and using our package, you don't worry about the size of what is coming into the application. Right. So let's actually go further and talk about um, the why you should use Watchdog, right? So, like I said in the introduction, Watchdog achieves every feature that is the message login, custom events login, request and response login, and even exception login in real time. So as requests are coming into your applications, right? These requests are being broadcast into a real-time pipeline, and then it's visual. It goes directly to your dashboard. So you don't have to wait. You don't have to refresh your browsers. Just keep watching your browser and see how the request gets populated on the dashboard. So this is not only for the request, it also happens to exceptions. So as soon as every exception coming to your application or happens to application, it gets logged in real time, as well as events and custom messages, right? Another feature Watchdog has is authentication and access control. You might be logging sensitive information, right? Some sensitive data, requests, headers, response bodies, and then you wouldn't want the dashboard to be accessible to anybody. Watchdog gives you the opportunity to. It's actually not optional. It's a mandatory configuration, right? You have to authenticate and authenticate your um, access to Watchdog dashboard. So once you make your configurations, you'll be asked to put your admin username and password, and then only those who have access to these credentials, right, can access your Watchdog dashboard. So I think Israel, you should let's hear the many features.
Okay, great. So these are just some of the interesting features, and these are just some of the reasons why you should use Watchdog. And the next one happens to be blacklisting, and I like to explain this with an example. So um, you are building an application, and you have to provide a user with an authentication credential, say a login username and a password. And for security reasons, you we all know that it's not advisable to store your passwords in clear. You have to either hash or some of the other security measures that are out there. And blacklisting provides you with the option to exclude a particular endpoint from being logged. So basically, what happens is when you blacklist your login endpoint, whatever request or response that comes into that endpoint or that leaves that endpoint is not being logged. That way, we can enjoy the benefits of Watchdog while still maintaining top-notch security. Another feature I love to talk about is the auto clear. So the reason why we use logs in our applications is so that we can trace where things are happening, or where errors are coming from, or some other reasons. And logs become possibly redundant over a long time. Watchdog provides you the feature to auto clear that whenever you want to. So for person A, your use case might be to clear your logs every week. For person B, your use case might be to clear your logs every month. So Watchdog gives you the opportunity to, or gives you the flexibility to choose how you want to auto clear your logs, if you want to auto clear your logs, and how long you want to store those logs before they clear. So you can either decide to clear your logs daily, or you can decide to clear them weekly, monthly, quarterly. It's all embedded into Watchdog. You just have to select that option, and it does the rest for you. I'm going to let Kelechi talk to you about some of the other features and why you should use Watchdog. But I would really love to hear your opinion on what you think Watchdog is like, and why you use Watchdog. When you get to use that, or if you haven't used that. So Kelechi, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Israel. So I think the next point is going to be user friendly. Um, like I've already said, considerations into uh, the build time when we're building Watchdog, right? And we had to make sure that the experience is very friendly. You'd go into your dashboard and then you can readily see features available for you to consume, right? There are non-blocking um, UI experience. The user interface is very easy to to go through, right? And the second one, or the next rather, is going to be ease of use, right? So the ease of use is more or less walking through the documentation that is readily available on NuGet and on the GitHub repo, and then picking up the configurations, right, that applies to you. So it's very straightforward, right? It's as every other configurations you would have already been used to in other libraries, right? So you register services, you configure the services, add your configuration parameters, the variables, and then the options you would want available on the installment, right? So there are mandatory fields, there are optional fields, and then trust me, while going through the documentations, they are very easy to actually follow. And finally, it's open source. Open source being it's open for contributions, open for suggestions, open for improvements, and then, we've made a lot of improvements because it was actually open source. Trust me, you cannot make the best solution or the best you can't build the best solution in one iteration, right? There have to be multiple iterations, improvement, and then you might not know it all, right? So it being open source has helped us improve over multiple versions, right? And then there are more improvements coming on the way. So I think that covers the point of it being open source. So I think the next is going to be what technologies we actually considered or used while building Watchdog. So two main technologies were or are rather the Signal R, right? The signal we leverage on the Signal R to help us building that real time experience between the login pipelines and then the user end, right? So Signal R, as we all know, it leverages on multiple real time connections and then fallbacks, right? There the long polling, the WebSockets, and then etc. So which is readily available at that time, it switches, and then there are lesser fields, right? I don't know, you get me right. So we leverage on Signal R to bring in the real-time connectivity and experience into the whole applications. And then also, Watchdog supports two storage mechanisms rather. We have the light DB, which is the internal DB, and then the external DB. The light DB makes it possible for you, or if you don't have those external DB infrastructure set up yet, you could leverage on the light DB to log whatever Watchdog is trying to save for you, right? So it automatically creates this DB during installation, and then it sets it up for you seamlessly. On the other end, we have inbuilt drivers for MS SQL, MySQL, and Postgres. In future, we'll be supporting other databases, right? But these are the basic databases we support now. So the MySQL, MS SQL, and the Postgres, they serve as some external DBs. So if you have your DB that is readily available, you can plug in your DB into Watchdog through the connection string, and then have Watchdog log directly to your DB. Have in mind that Watchdog handles the table creations, the insertions, and then it do that. It's operates seamlessly and then in a timely manner, right? So I think that's what for the two main technologies. Like I said, most of the other implementations we did, we actually built from ground level up. So we try to limit the number of external libraries that we consumed. Right. So next is going to be configurations, code examples of how a typical configuration to Watchdog will be. So I think Israel, you want to take that.
Okay, thank you, Kelechi. So for the configuration, um, this is basically what it looks like when you are using all of Watchdog's features. So I'm going to start with the Add Watchdog services, right? So for all the configurations you see inside Add Watchdog services, they are all optional. So I'm going to start with the first one. Is auto clear logs. So that's basically supposed to be set true if you want your logs to be cleared automatically. But if you want to clear your logs manually, or you don't want to clear your logs at all, you just need to leave that blank. By default, it is false. And the clear time schedule also works with the auto clear logs, depending on how long you want your logs to be kept before they are cleared automatically. So that also is optional if you are not using auto clear logs. And I think by default, your logs clear weekly if you do not set the clear time schedule. So as I mentioned earlier, you can set that to daily, you can set that to weekly, monthly, quarterly. Um, we have the driver options if you want external databases. Um, you can just pass in the type of database you use, and then you pass in the connection string to that database, and it does, as Kelechi mentioned, the migration, creates the tables and all of that for you. Um, so, like I said, all of Watchdog services are optional depending on your use case, on how you want to use Watchdog. It's really flexible, which means it
True.
allows you to,
It's configuration.
do a lot of configurations according to your use case. We have use Watchdog exceptions. That's the app.use Watchdog exception logger. So this is basically if you want Watchdog to capture every exception that occur inside your application. So wherever that exception is happening inside your application, Watchdog captures it if you use this. But if you don't want that, you can as well leave that blank. But I would advise you to capture your exception so it
Right.
helps you debug better. And then for app.use Watchdog, that is basically where the major configurations happen. The watchdog username and the watch page username and the watch page password basically acts as the username and password that gives you access to the dashboard. So you configure that here and you use this when you are trying to access your dashboard. To access your dashboard is just basically your URL/watchdog. And as Kelechi mentioned earlier, the documentation is, everything is explained in documentation, and the ease of setup is amazing. So you can just check that out. We are going to be dropping a link to the documentation at the end of the session. You can get more information from there as well. And then for the blacklist, I spoke about that earlier. If you don't want a particular endpoint to be logged to the Watchdog database, or you don't want it to be monitored, you just add that to the blacklist. This is a comma separated list. So if you wanted to add more endpoints that you want to blacklist, you just separate them with a comma, and Watchdog does all of that for you. So this is basically the setup, the configuration for Watchdog. And then we are going to look at what the dashboard looks like and the information you get when you use Watchdog in your application. So this is basically what the dashboard looks like. You can see all the requests, 404, 200, and the likes. You can see by the top right and by the top left, you have some filter parameters where you can filter by either post request or get request, or you can filter by status codes depending on what you are trying to debug for or what you are trying to look for. You can also see some tabs at the top right for exception logs and your messages or events in code logs that happen inside your application. Um, you can also log out and clear your logs. As I said, if you don't want to enable the auto clear logs parameter, you can use this as well to clear your logs. And we are going to see a bit more information on what this looks like. Whenever you click on each of these posts, you have a modal like this that shows you a more detailed information on what that particular log parameter has for you. So you can see the host, the path, the query, methods, IP address, and all of that. It also gives you the execution time for that particular endpoint or that particular um, function. So it shows you how long your API spent performing that particular task. You also get the requests, the responses, the headers, and all of that, which you can use in your debugging. So this is basically what Watchdog looks like, the dashboard. And like we've mentioned severally in this session, everything happens in real time. So whenever a user somewhere does performs a particular task, looking at the dashboard, you see the request coming in, and you can, like I said, monitoring officers, developers. It just basically helps with debugging, logging, keeping all your logs in one place, and then having a sleek user interface to visualize all of these and sort through all of that. So that is basically what Watchdog looks like. So I think that is all for the session. This is a link to the repository. I'll be dropping that in the comment section as well. You can check out the documentation, what Watchdog looks like. You can head on to nuget.org to try out the package, and in your demo application or in your production application. As Kelechi mentioned earlier, we have the release candidate version out now. That is supposed to go live sometime this weekend into production. And we have some amazing features on there which you would definitely love to try out. We are going to also be taking questions, and these are our Twitter handles as well. In case you have some other questions or you come up with issues later, you can always, send us a message, and we'll be sure to get on that. And as we mentioned earlier, this is open source, so definitely we are open to contributions. Would love to see ideas as well or new features that you think should be implemented, and would love to see code contributions as well. Open issues, send pull requests, and all of that. We are here for it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how you use Watchdog and
Yeah.
your experience using Watchdog. I don't know if Kelechi has anything to add to that.
I think we already um rounding up real past time. But yeah, like I just said, if you have any questions, you can always hit us up on our Twitter account. Um, you could actually contribute there. I think that's actually very important. If you have any improvements, any suggestions as to Watchdog, and I think you can actually open a pull request or an issue on GitHub repo, right? And then I don't know if there are going to be questions.
Yes,
Jamie,
that was amazing, Israel Kaleshi. Thank you
okay,
so much. That was Watchdog, everyone.
okay.
We are at time, but if you want to reach out and have any questions, please reach out to them on their Twitters here or through the GitHub repo right there. It is open source. They are looking for contributions. Thank you so much for your time. That was really awesome. I look forward to using it myself.
Yeah, sure,
Thank you.
definitely,
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Jamie. It's
Thank you,
great
Jamie.
to be here.